Hello everyone, Anita here and welcome to another art video. I know I'm actually a day late, I apologize, but you can't help inspiration. I had to scrap the project I had in my mind for this week in favor of this one because for the past 2-3 days I've been absolutely obsessed with the new music video by Porter Robinson called Shelter. And if you haven't watched this video yet, please, there's a link in the description, do watch it. I highly recommend it. It's absolutely gorgeous, beautiful, breathtaking. Perhaps it's just my personal opinion, but it struck me. I had to, indulge myself into some, I wouldn't say fan art, but it is. You guys know I don't really draw fan art that often. And recently I'm struggling a little bit with my personal inspirations. I don't know what it is exactly, I'm just struggling. And so whenever there is a moment when I feel inspiration just being there, I'm grabbing it, I'm not letting it go, and that's why you're getting this picture. And so going back, because this is a painting video and you guys probably want to know what I'm doing. So I am painting on an A4 300 gram. It is a cold pressed arch paper. It has a little bit of a texture, not too much. It's not that rough, and it's pretty smooth, let's be honest. Not as smooth as hot press, but it's pretty smooth. And I'm using watercolor, even though this is a little bit of an Inktober piece because I had inks just standing next to my desk, but I needed the color for the characters. And so I have a little palette prepared with the colors, and the colors are pulled out from the music video. I tried to match them a little bit, of course, because it's a fan art. Of course, the bear is not pink, but inspiration. It's just my interpretation. And what I'm doing here is I'm using very light, very thin layers of watercolor, just layering it, getting the intensity that I want. I just like doing it like that. I feel like by painting with really thin layers, you get a very smooth effect. And I really like that smoothness. Sometimes I really like the texture in other paintings, or rather in paintings of other people. Whenever I'm painting for myself, it just has to be smooth. Nothing else really makes me happy. And so for me personally, painting in a lot of very thin layers is just the best. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just putting a lot of very thin layers. I'm kind of done with the bear for now, so I decided to do the character. And I'm using mainly only one shade of pink and mixing it with other colors, but instead of, I feel like, when you're mixing colors, of course, in watercolor especially, it's very easy to get the colors muddy. Very, very easy. And the more I'm actually experimenting with color mixing, I feel like I prefer to layer colors rather than mix them. So, for example, if I want to change a certain color, I'm going to layer a different color on top of the paper instead of mixing it in my pan. That's what I've discovered. I've been doing it a little bit without thinking about it for a very long time. But now when I'm actually consciously thinking about what I'm doing, I've realized that this is one of the biggest discoveries for me, I think, this year, is that I'm not mixing colors, I'm actually layering them. And you can see me doing it here quite a lot, on the bear especially, where I'm just putting different, you can see me kind of skipping some of the layers because, of course, there's so many of them. And so if you see the bear not having features and then all of a sudden having them, that's because I'm just skipping through some of the layers. And I'm just adding different, for example, here I'm layering a little bit of the blue because I felt like the bear it was just too warm. Everything was too warm and I needed a little bit of that coolness. It wasn't exactly a shadow because this girl is floating kind of in space. That was the idea. And of course there will be a little bit of shadow, but what I really wanted was to kind of incorporate that bear into the background, which I will be working on later. Another thing I'm not doing very often, because as you guys know, I'm usually working a layer at a time, so I will paint everything first and then I will keep working on the whole painting instead of like here I'm just doing the characters first and then the background. So that, I don't know, it's I feel like when I'm not painting for a rather long time, and I haven't touched watercolors for a really long time, and I feel like every single time I have this break, I change something when I come back. I change my process somehow, and it's very refreshing in a way. And so that's painting at the moment feels completely different to a few months ago when I was doing the weekly 52-week challenge. And it's really refreshing, I have to say. And so I'm adding that blue, just deepening the, I wouldn't say shadows even though it looks like a shadow, I would say a little bit of a contrast. So I really wanted to add just a different dimension to the bear. And I'm just adding, okay, let's just set it there. I'm adding blue shadows. I think it's the easiest way to say it. And I'm staying away from the lines. As you can see, there is no line art yet. That's because when you're putting lines in watercolor, the best way I found personally is to do it at the very end, because especially in my, I tend to change my mind a lot. And at some point, I keep adding those little layers of color, and oftentimes there is not that much difference between the shades. But I will add another layer, for example, of brown over what I've just painted, because I just want to change the tint just a little bit. And if I have lines put in at that time, if I put another layer of watercolor on top, the watercolor lines will just smudge. Because I'm doing my lines with watercolor, it's just they will smudge. They won't be as sharp as as they would be if I put them on last. That's why I just try to decide. Just try to put the lines on at the very, very end of painting. And so you can see me here starting to work on the background. Now, what I wanted to do in the background was like a galaxy with black ink. That was my idea. But I didn't want it to be just black and white. I felt like I needed that pink and that blue that I've used on the bear and on Rin. That's the girl's name. It sounds weird when you pronounce it. And so I tried to use those colors, and I'm trying to put them here in the first layer without mixing them too much, because those two colors, those two shades, they don't really mix that well. The purple that comes out of those two colors is not really pretty. And also there was not much purple in that whole painting. There is pink and there is blue. There is no purple. I did not want them to mix. And so I'm putting them at first, trying not to make them mix. I was like, okay, I committed, I'm going to do it. But then I knew that when I put another layer in, and you can see me doing it, excuse me, you can see me doing it right now. That's already, one layer is already dry. That's another layer being applied. And I'm just putting in pink at this point only. And this is the Madder Lake, I think. I don't remember exactly, but let's call it just pink. It's just pink. So I'm putting in the pink only. And then after that layer dries, I'm going back and putting in only blue. And this way I making sure that those two colors don't mix. They just overlap. It's kind of like when you imagine those colors. I'm putting another layer and there is only that blue on that one layer. Like, let's say it's a transparent sheet. But that layer of blue is still a little bit transparent, so that pink is still peeking out from underneath, and it's just a really nice way of layering. I really like doing that. And so I'm just adding that, this is a background for our galaxy. I don't want it to be too visible. That's why I'm painting mostly in the middle, because I knew that I wanted to have the edges really, really black. And the middle, mostly, not fully, but mostly just have the color in the middle. And I absolutely love black ink. This was the first time I put it on such a big surface, and it was drying really, really quickly, and I had to work really quickly, but it was really easy to even it out, even when it was starting to dry. As long as it's not dry, you can still kind of move it around. Once it's dry, it's just permanent. You can't do anything with it. And but it's the one thing that I really don't like is that, of course, like everything, it dries much softer. It's not as black when it dries, and that's a shame. But it's still beautiful. I'm in love with black ink. And so at this point, it doesn't look like a galaxy yet, but I feel like, especially when you're painting a galaxy, you don't really see the effect until you really put in the stars and just the little details. Because at this point, it just looks like a one big mess, especially for me, because I'm not really good at painting galaxies. I love painting them, but I'm not really good. So what I did now is that I decided that was the point where I can put in the line work, since the background was mostly done. And what I'm using is my the tiniest paintbrush I have at the moment. It's the Colibri 5/00/5, one of those. It's the teeny weeny brush, and it's really sharp. The point is beautiful. I've never had such a nicely pointed brush before, and I love painting with it, even though it doesn't hold too much paint and I have to redip it constantly. But the lines are really, really neat and sharp, and you can kind of almost sketch with it as well. And you can see me doing it in a few places, just adding those teeny weeny lines, and I love it. And so I do a lot of lines off camera, because especially her face, it was just so tiny and so detailed. I had to have my face mostly in her face with my nose straight over the paper. And because of that, I couldn't really record, because of course my head was in the way. And then I started finishing the background. So my idea for this painting was that she, if you haven't seen the video, watch it. Definitely you will know what I'm talking about. But she has a tablet that helps her create her own world around her. She can just adjust it to whatever she wants. And in this case, I kind of imagine that she creates this email, the message in her reality. That was my concept. You have to see the video to actually understand what I'm talking about. I don't want to spoil it too much. And so I wanted it to be very shiny, almost like part of the galaxy itself. And it was really hard for me to do, because that kind of painting requires a little bit of planning to pull off. And so I was like, I don't want to plan. I wanted to just appear there in front of me. And so I did my best. So I'm painting with Acryla gouache right now, and I wanted to paint in the stars by hand, but at some point I just gave up, and I used a toothbrush, of course, just a painting toothbrush. And as a very last touch, I actually used the golden ink, because I felt that the painting just needed the gold. The gold was kind of floating in my head since the beginning, pretty much. That was but I didn't want to put it there, because you guys know that I'm not really fond of recording gold, because it just doesn't really look as nice on camera or in photos as it does in reality, in person. But it just needed it. So at the very end, literally very end, I just gave in and started, I colored the little mail icon and all the circles, which are the bigger stars or whatever you call it. You can see me coloring them now. And then I put a lot of little stars around, which I didn't record that, but you can see it here at the very last shot. There's just so many golden stars, and it really, really complements the black, the pinkish red. It works really well with the colors. I'm very, very happy with it. So that's it, guys. That's it. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please leave me a like if you did, and consider subscribing if you would like to see more of my videos. And yeah, thank you so very, very much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!